Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream today, where we're going to talk about something that pretty much affects every single one of you. It doesn't matter what country you live in around the world. Today's video affects everyone. And it's interesting because I've been asked to talk about this dozens and probably hundreds of times since right back to December 2021. That might give you a slight indication of what we're going to talk about here. And the reason I can talk about it today, you'll notice on the screen there, is that we're on different platforms. So even if this video gets taken off the main platform here, the main channel, it doesn't matter because you're going to be able to watch it on, there's about 15 other platforms, but the main ones are on screen now. So we are going to tackle this topic today. And it is going to be somewhat controversial, but I think it's important that we talk about it. And just a quick one, some people have been asking when this next course is coming out that I've been talking about for 9 months now. It should be coming out sometime in June, so somewhere around June time. I'm going to do a pre-release as well on the course. I don't want to talk about it today because we've got a lot to talk about with this. But just so those of you who are waiting for it, it's going to come out around June time, and I'll announce it then. So let's just take that off the screen for a second. Okay, now then, we'll take the live stream stuff off as well. Let's get that off. There you go. Okay, so this takes place on May 27th. So in exactly 13 days from today, this is when it's all going to be what they call voted upon. Although it's not really a vote, it's not really being voted upon because there's no public discussion. There's been requests for public votes and public discussions. They've all been rejected throughout different countries. And the number of signatures on petitions, I mean, the numbers are so ridiculous. There's no way they're going to get to 500,000 people, for example. 500,000 people don't understand about the WHO. They don't understand about this new treaty, although they've changed the wording on it. They're not calling it a treaty. They're calling it, I'll come to this, they're calling it something else because it's all about semantics. It's all linguistics. If you use certain words, there has to be votes on it. There has to be things going through the Senate and the House and things like that, and through the House of Parliament. There has to be voted on these things. But if you change the wording, then politicians can just push it through. Oh yeah, we're fine with going through with a lot of this. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about this new WHO bill that is coming into effect very shortly. And the reason it's been delayed is because there was huge amounts of pushback, mainly I would say by Republican senators, which is a good thing because if you read this bill, I read it and I was really, really surprised by this bill. I want to pull up. Actually, let me give you a bit of context before we go on to the bill. So you probably saw all of these articles. I mean, they're everywhere. Risk of bird flu spreading, says WHO, and they were all front page. And I read these articles because I thought, oh, maybe I need to cover this as a story. Has raised concerns about the spread of H5N1, extraordinarily high mortality rate. So I kept seeing these articles everywhere nonstop, and I thought, right, there's obviously something bad going on here. Oh, it's been spread to 16 herds of cattle now. Oh, this is the next pandemic, as they keep talking about. But then when I started to look into all of this, it says that there hasn't been any cross-infection with humans. I mean, there has been, I think, one case now or something like that. We'll go over that, so I'm accurate on that. But it says, so far there's no evidence that H5N1 is spreading between humans. But in the hundreds of cases where humans have been infected through contact with animals over the past 20 years, okay, so they're really grasping at straws here, the mortality rate is extraordinarily high because humans have no natural immunity to this virus. Right, so I saw this, and then I saw all of these CDC alerts coming out. This was on the 1st of April. Okay, big warning here. Another one came out, a big one. They started talking about all sorts of other things, horses and dogs. Have you got a horse? Have you got a pet dog? Well, you need to be careful. It's like, what on earth is all this about? And then this just came out a few days ago. The feds are preparing for low probability of bird flu moving to humans. Big article, all these articles coming up. Federal agencies open funding to stop it. And I thought, what is this? This is nothing. It's a nothing burger of a story. And I just thought, why are they running with all of this? And then they got into bird flu in US cattle has caused concern among milk drinkers. Is cow's milk safe to drink? And they did this big article on cow's milk and all this sort of stuff. And I said, hold on. There's obviously something going on here, because like many of you, I noticed patterns. So seeing all these articles at first didn't really mean anything to me. It was just in the back of my mind, saved a few of them to the side just in case anything broke here. But then I started noticing more and more and more and more. And everyone's getting involved in all this stuff about bird flu, and they're really ramping it up. And I thought, there's obviously something else going on here. So then I started to broaden the net and see what exactly is, how can I link this? There's something going on behind the scenes. And then I see this big announcement, Biden's going to pass this new bill in the US on May 27th, and that the US needs to hand over their authority on future pandemics to the WHO. And I said, okay, that's the connection. And I started looking into it, and I was absolutely shocked at the amount of countries this involves. It's not the way that the media had portrayed it, which was just a few countries. It said sort of US and Canada, the UK, Australia. They mentioned a couple of other countries. It's not. This is a global new system. It's not just these few countries they've been talking about. This is global. And I've got the paperwork here. I've actually downloaded everything. I've read every last line on this, so I almost know it by heart now. So let's just jump over. Now, by the way, just for context here, the WHO, I keep seeing people saying, this is an independent organization, or it's a charity, it's all this. No, this is the United Nations flag, and this is the WHO flag. Do you notice anything similar about these things? It's pretty much the same organization, but with the coiled snake, as it were. Okay, everything comes down from the UN. We've talked about this and we've covered it a lot over the years. So they are interlinked. Now then, I want to take you back to the top of this document. But one thing I found really interesting was they were talking about each state party shall, within the means and resources at its disposal, provide sustainable domestic funding to build, strengthen, and maintain core capacities required under these regulations. And the word sustainable appears over and over and over and over again in this doctrine. And again, there's your logo, World Health Organization. Now, this is the working group on amendments to the IHR, or what's known as the WGIHR. It's not really the 2005 document, as they keep saying. This is the December 2021 document, is how I would put it to you. So this is their latest one, which was a month ago. It was released. It's now gone through the final sort of appeal process and everything like that. But this, if you understand contract law, which I'm very, very hot on contract law, having written and signed hundreds of contracts in my life, I really understand this in detail. And when I've been going through all this, I'm going, hold on, this doesn't look right. There's a lot of very strange things here as I'm going through. So contamination, decontaminate, like all the different things they've gone in here is very, very strange, because the paragraphs actually cross-reference. They link to other paragraphs. Anyone who's an attorney or a lawyer watching can leave a comment and explain better than I can. But everything links and cross-references to one another. So when they're talking about destruction of, how do they word it? They're talking about the destruction of carriers and things like that. And it's like, what does that mean exactly? The destruction of a carrier? Is that just animals? Well, no, because they talk about They talk about, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to do that with humans, but I'm just saying the doors are very wide open with a lot of stuff here. I mean, I would highly recommend that you go through this. I know it's a huge document, but I would highly recommend you go through some of this and what they are actually talking about. But in effect, they want to take control of everything. And it's not just about another COVID or anything like that. This actually goes a lot deeper than COVID. I'll come off this a second. Because it goes a lot deeper than COVID and future pandemics. They also talk about climate, natural disasters. But I've got the entire list in here. So there was global warming was another one. So they want to take control if they feel that global warming is getting out of hand. So they want to put their influence in these areas. The environment, farming, and food supplies. It's here in black and white. Farming and food supplies is the other thing they want to do. There's other things such as they will take a strong stance on promoting censorship because of the misinformation that was passed during 2020, 2021. Even though it wasn't misinformation, it was actually quite accurate. You know, the people that talked about, remember my videos, I didn't really talk about vaccines because I didn't want to get into that. I don't really know about that stuff, so I didn't want to get into it. But what I do know about is economics. I understand economics so incredibly well that just by thinking through lockdowns, my brain is like this big mind map. I could see every area this would impact, from children, from the psychology, from mental health, due to what the lockdowns would do to businesses, and how taking these loans that the government was offering via the banks, and they were supporting the banks, didn't really make much sense. But even all this stuff, I knew it would collapse the small businesses, where they were giving grants to the big corporations, the big businesses. So I could see all this. I knew what was coming. So I was very vocal. I said the lockdowns are a huge, huge mistake, and they're going to cripple businesses. They're going to destroy the economy, because I knew what they were going to do. I knew they were going to create all this new currency, which would then, which, bear in mind, there hasn't been any economic productivity to make that money, right? They just printed it, even though they typed numbers on a computer and it appeared on the screen. They just printed it, gave it to people without productivity. That isn't how economics works. You can't just do that. You can even play games. Kids play games these days where they have tokens. If you just put more tokens into the pool, well, the assets that are connected to those tokens, they're not worth as much in terms of the value terms. So it's obvious we were going to have all this inflation. Anyway, I made videos on this. You guys, if you've been following me a long time, you watch them. And I get a strike, videos removed, all this because it's criticizing the response. Well, yeah, it's criticizing the response because the response on the lockdown measures, how they did it, was ridiculous, and it was going to cause worse problems. Now, if you look at, say, Sweden or Florida or some of the other places that took different measures, and you look at some people call it the juxtaposition between California and Florida and how bad it was. No, the stats, and I can't even show them because we are on YouTube, the stats show the death rates were identical for both states, right? I mean, and you have to take some variables into account based on how many people and demographics and stuff like that. But it was ridiculous, right? So we had all these things. Now, despite all this, the One Health concept is remain, and they're pushing it through. So now they've got all of these celebrities, they've got world leaders, everyone's pushing it. And of course, if you're not on that side and you're being influenced by the celebrities and everyone pushing it, they're doing the fear approach at the same time. Oh, well, if you're not with us, you're against us. That means, we've heard all this before. That means that you're against us, and you don't care about people's health and all this other stuff. This really, I can't see how this is about health. To me, I'm reading all of it, even surveillance as well. They want to create this surveillance system for social media so people can't spread information that's not correct. That's not health, that's control. There's a big difference between the two. So this is going through very shortly. Let's get back into the shared screen a moment here. Let's have a look at this. So I'm not going to go through all of this because I think it's important. It's only 64 pages. I do think it's important that you read it, and I'll tell you what it's called if you want to make a note. It's you can just do a search for this, the WGIHR, 17th of April 2024. Okay, so they've made these key concessions ahead of the treaty vote. And this is the thing, they've got opposition from 22 state attorney generals. I mean, that would tell you that 22 is not as if it's just like 2. No, it's a huge amount. So what they've done, they've watered down some of their agreements. And this is ahead of the upcoming World Health Assembly on May 27th. Critics, however, say the changes don't do enough to address the concerns over the policy. In most areas, and for all which most concerned us from a legal perspective, the interim draft reflects a major retreat by the group from the original proposals. Practically all the bad things are still there. Yes, they are indeed. My guess is they are desperate to get something passed. Yeah, because people are waking up. That's why. That they realize the longer they wait, the more people are waking up and realize what's going on. The WHO and its advocates, including celebrities, politicians, and religious groups now, have launched a global campaign urging the 194 member states. Okay, it's there in black and white. 194 member states to sign the documents. They want this signed ASAP. Of course, they've got to have a bit of, these sort of pictures in there as well. Now, what's interesting is in recent months, Louisiana and Florida have passed laws stating that state officials will not obey these new directives. Oklahoma is also considering similar legislation. We have in the UK as well. We have Nigel Farage is launching this new campaign as well to get everyone to abandon these plans. So there's this new thing happening in the UK as well. So Nigel's trying to stop this. But of course, as soon as he came out with that, you have these people, and I can't call them paid voices because I don't know, but there's obviously something going on there. These people straight away, like the health minister, urges MPs to ignore these myths. That it's absolute, conspiracy. All these myths that are coming out. In 2 weeks' time, there'll be. Okay, so this is what they're saying is a myth. In 2 weeks' time, this will be binding on us under international law. It talks about all sorts of things here. But he's saying, no, this is all, it's not true. They won't be able to tell us to do anything. This is just to help with their, a better policy for the world. It's like, no, it's really not. But on May 8th, Attorney Generals from 22 states signed a letter urging him not to sign the WHO agreements. Now, there's a battle going on in Washington because you've got Biden's team that is saying it's all going to be passed. They're going to pass it, and they're actually the leaders of this, pushing it. So they're putting international influence as well, which, again, we won't get too much into international law here, but the US, or the current administration, let's say, shouldn't really be putting pressure onto other countries. And they've got a lot of tools at their disposal to do that. They shouldn't really be putting pressure onto other countries to accept these new measures. The people should have a say in this as well. So we have all of this going on. And here it is. And ultimately, the goal of these instruments isn't to protect public health. Is to cede authority to the WHO. Officially, it's Director General. This is what shocked me. I could not believe this. And again, we can find this in the report. This is what shocked me, I think, the most, even though the whole thing's shocking. All it takes is for the Director General of the WHO to declare a global emergency. And that's it. There's no sort of council or there's no board that votes on it. This one person can make the decision. One man or woman can make the, and by the way, they actually say man or woman in there, which I thought was interesting. It's like all the, the usual stuff. They, them, black. There's none of that. No, it said he or she. It says it in black and white. will make the decision on that. And then the member states, or the 192, whatever it was, member states, has to follow this. Let's keep going through because it shows it in black and white, all of these things. Let's go here. Okay. The global concept of One Health remains in the treaty, which could expand the WHO's authority into new areas. Here it is, global warming, environment, farming, food supplies as well. Why are they involved in food supplies? One Health is defined in the treaty as an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people. Now, this is one of the things I picked up in the document that's been changed. So instead, what they've done to push this through is they've started pushing in all this stuff about sustainability, ecology, and blah, blah, blah. Then they've got equity, and it's called human equity, human capital equity, and all these other words that they're putting in. And they're saying that this will be based on an equality system. What exactly that means, that it will be launched as an emergency based on an equality and diversity system, I'm not sure. It doesn't really make sense. I can't even give you an example of how absurd that is. The two are nothing to do with what has health got to do with equality and diversity? Absolutely nothing. It's just all this stuff they're bringing in now to get things passed. Full respect for the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of persons. This is it. You can see it as quoted here. Equity, solidarity. I'm pulling out all the key words here that I also read. And it says this becomes important when it comes to efforts by member states to force people to take vaccines to keep their job, as the administration did in its 2021 mandate. That directed private employers to fire employees. And of course, we know what happened with the military. The military suffered the most. Many countries and several US cities instituted passports as well that barred the unvaxxed from going into certain public places, museums, restaurants. We all remember these things. Austria passed a law during the pandemic criminalizing refusal as well. So we all remember this stuff. The issue is that that's what happened last time around. Here's my concern. If that's what happened last time around, when there wasn't really any global governance, as they call it, and member states just did their own thing, each country made a decision, each state in the US made a decision, well, what exactly is going to happen the next time? If that's what happened in 2020, 2021, what on earth is going to happen in the future when the next one, what does it Billy Boy say? That, yo, you're not ready yet for the next one. The next one is going to come, as they were smirking, right? I mean, what's going to happen then? If this was happened this time, I don't even want to know what they're going to do next time around with all of this. Okay, the other things that they brought up were a global surveillance system, and they say it's to track potential diseases. But if you actually look at the wording, it's via carriers. So what is a carrier? A carrier is a human, or it's a bird or whatever else, because they put a lot of emphasis on birds and animals. But a carrier, again, if we look at, remember this here, we always have to look at the definitions. This is where you always find the definitions, purpose, scope, etc. You've always got to look at the definitions. Whenever you look at any contract before you sign, most people skip over definitions, don't, because it tells you things like, well, what is a carrier? Well, a carrier can be a human. So they want to have this global surveillance system to track potential diseases. They want to have requirements for digital health passports. Okay, so all this stuff that got kicked out is now sort of starting to come back. Vesting power, here it is, in the Director General to declare the emergency. Just one person can declare it. That is insane. I think we can all agree that one person making that decision for the entire world is insane. It's ridiculous. There should be, I mean, you've got to at least have a panel right? At least have 5 people on the panel. Even the EU is with their draconian rules coming in to remove voting rights and everything else. Even they're going to have 5 presidents to make the votes, right? As bad as that is, and I don't agree with it, but for the WHO, at least, I mean, one person is yeah, it's crazy. Here it is then. So we've got all this heat resistance now on this treaty. Got all this. Look, this is what they've been doing. Actually, let me show you this. 23 former national presidents, 22 former prime ministers, a former UN General Secretary, 3 Nobel laureates, and all these celebrities are all pushing now via their network and their influence for everybody to sign this stuff. And he's called as well, the ambassador has called for worldwide action to expose fake news disinformation campaigns by conspiracy theorists trying to stop this going through. Now here we go. I wanted to talk about this. They're not calling it a treaty, so they had to change the name. So before they were calling it a treaty, but they can't because it requires approval from national legislators. So what are they calling it now? They're calling it an accord, because if it's an accord, you don't need national legislators to get involved in this. So how much power will they get then? One of the primary concerns is that each country would cede authority to them. And once the organization declares a health emergency, that's pretty much it. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. So Louisiana's passed a bill on this. They've also included not just the WHO, the UN and the WEF here has also been included, which made me smile when I saw that. We need a thumbs up for that one. So they've included these people as well in the bill. And Oklahoma is now looking to pass. They're about 2 weeks in since they started to look at the process. And they're going very hard on this. They're calling it medical tyranny and global governance. So overall then, I think I've covered everything that you need to know on this. It's very, very worrying. I mean, we even saw a lot of stuff passing in a lot of Western nations where our health data being sold to third parties. I don't even know where. I'm going to have to catch up on that to see where that is now. There was a good pushback on that. But what do we need? 300,000 petitions before it would be looked at in Parliament. Crazy. Why should it even have to be looked at in Parliament, stuff like this? So, yeah, not positive, my friends. But we're going to have to keep an eye on this. And May 27th is the date. May 27th is the date when they're going to be looking to pass this. So we'll have to see how it goes. But not good, not good. But thank you so much for being online, being on the stream. I really appreciate you, regardless of which platform you're watching on. Take care. God bless you. I will see you either tomorrow or Thursday. Less videos next week because I've got to go away for a couple of days. But I'll still try and make a video if I can. All right. See you next time.